Am I a colonizer? Okay, I guess. But then does that mean everyone who arrives then is also a colonizer? And so we have people who showed up last week and they're calling me a colonizer and I'm on stolen lands. And my whole argument in my case is like, hey, honey, you're stealing this land from us. I mean, whose is it? Like, is it just only the first? Is it first come, first serve, and that's it?
Whenever a term enters the vocabulary and people are bouncing this term around, I am not just suspicious but hostile to neologisms, because typically that is what the Marxist left does. They invent words, it's right out of George Orwell, and then they throw the word around. So lately people have been talking about decolonializing or something like that. So what is your take on that?
Yeah, I just wrote a Substack piece last week in the wake of what happened in Israel. Set aside all of the the horrors and the tragedy of that, but I noticed that leftists here in America started suddenly talking about a phrase I hadn't heard in a long time. We lived through all the BLM stuff and all the CRT stuff where they talked about white fragility and white supremacy and all of that stuff. But now they suddenly have a brand new phrase that I remember from long ago, and that is settler colonialism. That is now suddenly the new buzzword of the left to describe basically white people, Americans, Israelis, I don't know, anybody who doesn't fit their, isn't part of their club. I guess the Harvard Hamas appreciators, if you want to call them that.
Yes, the
we're all now
sadistic
just
Satanists.
Yeah.
So the new bad word, the new verbal cudgel is, oh, you're a colonialist. Ooh.
Right.
Yeah, yesterday it was, white nationalist, Tea Party. I mean, it's just funny that they just keep coming. Did you forget about alt-right?
Oh, that right.
Like 10 minutes ago,
Nazi.
It's like, oh, you're part of the alt-right. It was like, what? What is the alt-right? Like, they invented the term, they used it for like 6 years, and then it went away. And then I thought, gosh, was I ever part of the alt-right? But they keep coming up with terms, white nationalist, Christian nationalist. And anytime somebody invents a term, it seems to me obvious that they have nothing to say. So they invent a word that they can tag you with, Bolshevik, anti-Nazi. Those are the terms that the Nazis used. But the new Nazis are now, they've homed in on the word colonialism, colonialist, colonizers.
Mm-hmm. And the funny thing to me, the irony, and I don't think they even understand this, is that when you see all the pro-Palestinian marches happening in New York City and London and Paris and Sydney, Australia, all around the world, these are the people who, basically meet the definition of colonizers. They have journeyed long distances to a new land, formed a new community in a newly adopted land. I believe that means they are the colonizers, and I find it kind of hilarious that they're calling the people who have been there like maybe a lot longer than they have, who maybe even founded that country, wrote those constitutions for those countries. They're now being called the colonizers, and it's quite funny. But they don't even care. It doesn't matter. The only distinction now is, are you one of the good guys or one of the bad guys? And if you're a colonizer, i.e., white or whatever, you're one of the bad guys.
And I identify as i.e. white. In fact, that is my pseudonym. Yours is Peachy Keenan. I am i.e. white. And I won't tell you what the I stands for, but it's very, very interesting. Someday I'll tell you. I.e. white, that's me, except it's not. And you are not really Peachy Keenan, but that's the only term we have for you. But I'm gonna refer to you also as a colonizer, because you just have that colonizer vibe, if you know what I'm saying. You give me that colonizer vibe. Like, I don't think you were born where you're sitting right now. What are you even doing there? I don't know what you're doing there, but you weren't born there.
Yeah. We're all colonizers, I guess. My ancestors, I'm not a Native American. My ancestors came from, various European lands 100 years ago or whatever. I'm sure you're like many of us. So yes, am I a colonizer? Okay, I guess. But then does that mean everyone who arrives then is also a colonizer? And so we have people who showed up last week and they're calling me a colonizer and I'm on stolen lands. And my whole argument in my piece is like, hey, honey, you're stealing this land from us. I mean, whose is it? Like, is it just only the first? Is it first come first serve and that's it? The first person who like planted a flag or erected their teepee or whatever on whatever piece of property, it's theirs forever in perpetuity. Or like, how do we define now?
I gotta say, I need to repent of the fact that my 96-year-old Greek father has colonized land that rightfully belongs to the Housatonic Indians in Connecticut, and he
shame on him.
And let me tell you how he stole the land. By making mortgage payments for 30 years. Very deceptive, very deceptive, because it looks legal. But there's a lot of that going on, a lot of this colonization happening right now. So this term popped up after, where I find it funny, because it's so sick, you have Hamas doing things totally satanic, despicable, sadistic, cruel. You can't find words. What they did is beyond. It's not like, oh, they killed some people. They murdered, brutally, tortured, what they did. And instantly, the left, the people who hate Jews, not that we're judging, but they immediately pull out this narrative like, no, this is what we want to talk about. We want to talk about, we don't want to talk about torturing children and women and raping. We don't want to talk about that. We prefer to talk about colonizing. And enough people are kind of foolish enough to say, oh, okay, let's talk about that.
Yeah, they're experts at deflecting because obviously it makes them look bad. So they have to deflect and say, no, the people that we hurt, those are the bad guys. It was justified.
What else should we talk about? Current events today.
Well, one interesting thing that I saw, I think I tweeted it yesterday or the day before.
Are you on Twitter?
Yeah, on Twitter at Keenan Peachy. You can follow me. Some of my spicy tweets are
Keenan Peachy.
They've been a little bit spicy this week. Yeah. So NPR posted this little tidbit about Hamas, and I found another thing that I like about Hamas. Okay. Hamas encourages the people in Gaza to get married young and to have a lot of children, and they consider marrying young and having a lot of kids to be a revolutionary act. Because they're breeding, new soldiers for their army or whatever to carry on their message.
I think you meant to say new rapists and murderers, but that's okay. I'll let it go. Yeah. I'll let it go. Thank you.
That is what they train the children to do. So, But I thought, well, that's pretty based, and that is actually the message that I wrote a whole book about, domestic extremists, right here, which is about how we need to breed more revolutionaries for our own army. And my army is a movement of peace. It's nothing like Hamas, but it is a revolutionary movement that requires families to be fertile, to reproduce, to multiply, and raise, like I say, domestic extremists, people who will be dedicated parents, who will be enter into loyal monogamous marriages, and I believe, basically rebuild the nuclear family from the ground up. And so I think that doing that is a revolutionary act, especially from where I'm sitting here in Los Angeles, watching literally the superstructure of American society crumble all around me every day.
Well, it is interesting. I'm glad you reminded me of your book, Domestic Extremist. I hope people will get a copy, Domestic Extremist, by Peachy Keenan, which I'm not sure is her real name, but Domestic Extremist is the actual title of this book.
Yes.
It's not a fake title. The title is real. Domestic Extremist, yeah. But the name of the author is a pseudonym. But the title, Domestic Extremist, that's real.
Yes, and it's really for sale at Amazon and wherever books are sold.
It's literally for sale, literally. Domestic Extremist by Peachy Keenan, not her real name. Okay, so it's an interesting thing because and I know that probably the more liberal someone is, the fewer children they're likely to have. It's an interesting thing because you have liberals are almost, they have this bizarre, it's really a religion that says, people bad don't have kids. They seem to think that having children is a bad idea. And of course, biblically, we're told to be fruitful and multiply. Children are a blessing, but secular liberals don't get that.
Yeah, children are, you get punished with a baby, as Barack Obama said. Children hold you back as a woman. That's what feminism teaches. Having kids prevents you from fulfilling your true destiny, which is found through work, through your career, through self-actualizing, whatever.
And by the way,
an influencer.
Just think of Donna Shalala, if you can remember Donna Shalala. That's the gold standard. That's the gold standard. Please continue.
So having children is something that is basically puts you in the lowest caste of society. You are shunned if you have more than 3 children. People look at you on the street like you're a freak. What are you doing? You must be oppressed by your husband. He must have tricked you. You haven't heard the good news about feminism and birth control and abortion. We can enlighten you. You can free yourself of this horrific burden of all these kids. That's the message that you get as a young woman from every source, everywhere. There's nowhere you can go.
Kids and husbands are just going to hold you back. Think about it. If you don't have kids, don't get married, you could be the next Janet Reno. Think about it. Think about it. Open your mind. You could be the next Janet Reno. I want to say that, think of how funny this is, because you have, liberals in the West talking about marriage in the West as being oppressive. And in reality, when you think of the radical Muslims, the way they treat women, that is genuine oppression of women. I mean, it's oppression of women on a level that most people, liberals in the West, they don't even want to know about it because it's too horrible for them to admit. But it's real. It's genuine oppression.
I mean, there's some, you're not allowed to judge other cultures. You're not, that's verboten. That's, no matter what they do, stoning women to death, honor killings, which are common in Palestinian culture and across the Arab world still to this day. You're not allowed to talk about that. These people are revolutionaries and heroic because they're fighting against these awful ideas that you and I still believe in, like freedom of religion, the ability to practice any religion you want or not practice religion, equality under the law, meritocracy. Yes, women being able to not get beaten up by their husbands and being able to, leave a marriage.
It proves that feminists in America don't care about women, because if they did, they would be loud against what we're talking about.